And welcome back to the Ultra Running Guys. You got Jeremy Reynolds and Jeff Winchester of the Ultra Running Guys. And the reason that we're here is to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey. And part of knowing what that next step is figuring out what you want to go run. So a few months ago, we started this race spotlight series. It's been going over really, really well. And tonight we're talking about another race that's under the Aerovipa umbrella. We've talked about a few so far, but Jeff, why don't you give us some specifics?
So this race, though, is one of those that if you are on social media and you are involved in ultra running at all, you will see that this race has just continued to explode in popularity. It is like in October when this race comes around, everybody's social media is going to explode. Everybody's there but us, it seems like, right? But so yeah, everything about it though feels like the Woodstock of ultra running, where the entire community comes together to celebrate all things ultra and has a great time. It looks like just like a party. But there's also a race that takes place in the middle of this party. And it's also a golden ticket race. And so what that means is not only is everybody having a big old fun time, but you've got some serious, legitimate athletes and runners out there who are doing everything they can to qualify for Western States. And so you've got a very good mix of folks out there. We were talking about the Javelina Jundred, which is a 100-mile race that covers 5 loops that wind through the Sonoran Desert. And the elevation gain is minimal. So it's only about 1,580 feet per loop. And you are going to be running on a surface of packed granite to rocks and to sand. So to learn more about it, though, let's invite our good friend, Jubilee Page, to the party to talk about the Javelina Jundred. Jubilee, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So like we've said before, I mean, who better to learn from than the race director about, the race itself. And so to me, there's so much to talk about this. We just talked about it. It looks so exciting. I'm sure we're going to hear a bunch of wonderful things about why runners continue to show up to this. And part of the show is making sure that if you're thinking about doing this race, you're going to hear directly from Jubilee what to be thinking about, how to prepare, what you may be underestimating. But before we get into that, Jubilee, I'm interested. What is your favorite part about the Javelina Jundred?
Oh my gosh. So many things really, but I think, yeah, I love this race and I've been a part of this race for a while. And I think one of my favorite things just honestly is, the energy of this race, the overall energy that you feel as a runner, as a crew. Yeah, I think it's such a cool experience to come out to a race and just have that amount of people in the community, just, there for a party, there for a race. And the energy is really electric. Like it's like my favorite thing in the world is like right at the start of Javelina. It's just, you can feel the energy in the air and just people are stoked to be there. So it really is. It does feel like a party. And yeah, you can feel it throughout the entire event.
So I'm going to just go ahead and give some context. If you're not familiar with the race at all, this is, like we said, we've said party multiple times, but perspective-wise, it's got almost 1,000 people that are currently registered to run the 100-mile distance. There are a couple other distances that are available as well. But again, if you begin to wrap your brain around that just for a second, that's a lot of folks out there, and everybody is just like through the roof excited to be there. And so just from that kind of viewpoint, you do want to keep in mind, like it's one of those massive races. Why do you think, though, it draws such a large crowd? And why do you think runners keep coming to it?
I mean, I think mostly it's the idea of like being able to be a part of that party and being able to kind of showcase the community. I think our community in ultra running it's just spectacular and so diverse. And you get so many colorful characters in ultra running, and it is on full display at Javelina. And so you get to really experience like everybody. And it's kind of this idea of like community crew as well. So the race has one crewable aid station, and that is at Javelina headquarters. And that Javelina headquarters hosts the entirety of all of the crew and all of the spectators, all of the volunteers. And then you come through that 5 times, and you can feel the energy and you can hear, everybody's excited for you. And I think it is such a really, really special experience. And then, also being able to, for anybody who's never run in the desert, I think Javelina has a course that showcases the saguaro and the Sonoran Desert so well. And it's a beautiful park in the McDowell Mountain Regional Park. And you really get this wonderful glimpse of, how diverse and how lush the desert can be, really, and how like really full of life the desert can be. And I think that is the essence really of Javelina. Like there's just so much life in the desert, and that's what we bring. So yeah.
I love that so much. And so let me ask this, because there are a lot of things. So the race takes place in October.
Yep.
With the desert, and we've talked about this for a couple of different races, there can be a lot of diversity, a lot of things. So it sounds like beautiful. But if somebody's listening and thinking, great, I want to go do this, what is something that they may underestimate either about the race, the course, something that may catch them by surprise?
Oh my God, so many things, honestly. It's lovely because the desert will really kind of teach you a lot of things. And I think one of the things that people underestimate is the heat. For sure, you can always heat train, but I think people who have an idea, who've never been to the desert, Midwesterners, East Coast, international runners, if they've never been to the desert and we talk about heat training and making sure that you manage that heat, you've never felt kind of the long compounded exposure that the desert offers. And so I think people will really underestimate that. And it's so easy to go out really fast in the first loop. And then the sun comes out, and by 9:30, you are starting to sweat and you're starting to heat. And you're like, oh gosh, I don't know what's happening. What's going to happen when I get to 3 p.m. and the sun is in the sky? And so that compounded time under the sun is really, I think people underestimate what that does to a person and what that will do to your performance. So yeah, I think one of the biggest things is to make sure to take like heat and heat exposure and managing that heat very seriously for this race.
Do you have any particular tips on that, right? Because somebody may be coming from a different area, or have you seen things that runners maybe that aren't training in Arizona during the summer, have brought in to say, oh, this really helped me out to prepare?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we have tips and tricks on how to kind of maintain that heat and kind of practice with like icing your body and making sure that you ice on top of your body, right? Don't like it's about hydration and making sure that you're hydrated and you have enough electrolytes as well. But keeping your body very, very cool is that kind of exothermal like cooling, right? So you're going to cool your body, and then like as you're moving, that will cool your skin as well. So I would say practice with that, like during the summer, especially if you're going to sign up in the beginning of the year and you're ready to train for Javelina. When you get to the summer, go out in the middle of the day and start practicing those things. I had a guy who ran Javelina and practiced, and he had no really kind of access to warm weather. And so he ran circles in a sauna. It just very like very kind of compact, but just like moved his body in a sauna, and said that like that kind of that dry heat helped him prepare.
I mean, I think it's an important point because we live on the East Coast in North Carolina, and we're used to heat, but we're used to humid heat, and we sweat constantly during the summertime because of that. But I've only run one race out there in the desert area, and what happened for me, even in that same case, is you're dealing with a dry heat, right? And so you don't evaporate the same way. In the East Coast, we're just soaked all the time, but out there you can't tell you're sweating at the same rate that you actually are. And so I think what caught a lot of us surprised off guard really is when we get out there is that we don't realize we're sweating at the same rate, and we don't hydrate the same way because we don't see the sweat like we're used to seeing here. And so I do think you've got to prepare yourself for a dry heat. Like a sauna would work really well for that heat acclimation, as opposed to a steam room type heat acclimation, which some people try to do as well. And it's the wrong kind of heat acclimation.
Yeah, I highly recommend a sauna, and just like sitting in a sauna and getting used to kind of like breathing in like really warm air. But But for sure, yeah, in a dry heat and an arid exposure, like you're not gonna sweat the normal, right? So you don't know how much water you're actually losing, because as soon as you sweat, it evaporates immediately. So yeah.
Yeah, us East Coast runners during the summertime, we'll wear those shirts that are dry wicking and trying to get the water off of us. And instead, in the desert, we should be wearing cotton as well to hold
Yes.
the water as much
Yes.
as possible.
Hold as much water as you can.
Yeah, to
Soak
the
it up.
external cooling, like you're talking about. We
Yeah.
want to be wet out there, but we don't feel it. So
Is
sorry,
it-
sorry, small tangent.
No, I was actually exactly the point I was going to make. It's a very different experience
Mhm.
running out there compared to here. But I have a question, and this is sometimes we ask, and I'm guessing with a looped course, it's probably not as much, maybe one particular area. But a lot of times in an ultra, when you talk to the race directors, there tends to be a spot or a couple spots that tend to see more DNFs or kind of more people mentally, get into trouble, those types of things. Is there something that if somebody's thinking about signing up for this race, you're like, oh, watch out for this, or when you get here, press on because things get better? Anything like that? Like I said, with the loop course, it may be a little bit different, but
Yeah, with a loop course, it's a little bit more particular, only because you're going to hit those same aid stations 5 times. And so I can't really pinpoint an aid station that is like, you got to get here and then you're in the clear type of thing. It's not, so I kind of talk it in like loops, right? Where like the first loop is going to feel really great. And that 20 miles is going to kind of blow by. You're going to feel really jazzed. And like you kind of carry that adrenaline with you from the start. And the second loop is immediately. So I think if people can learn and just kind of anticipate maybe like managing the second and the third loop for their race, those are going to be the hottest loops of their race. And we've always kind of said like within like the aid stations, if you can get through the heat of the day and see the sunset, so that's, almost 12 hours after you've started. If you can get through those first 12 hours and maintain and like manage your heat well, manage your body temperature, and get through to sunset, then you can layer and then you can cruise. So we always say, like, if you can get to sunset and get through get to the night, then like there's a high possibility that you're going to finish.
So what's the temperature drop then for the evening once you get into there? Because like you said, you've been so hot all day and then all of a sudden sunset, which you're looking forward to that, I'm sure, to get some relief. But
For sure.
you actually said layer up. And so what's that temperature drop?
I say it because I mean it, really. So we see hypothermia cases in the desert, and it is like it baffles me every year because the desert, lovely as it is, holds no heat from all the sun exposure and all the pounding of the sun. That ground holds no heat whatsoever after the sun sets. So as soon as the sun sets, man, it gets cold. So as soon as you like anticipate like on the loop, make sure that you have a layer, make sure you have a jacket, something especially dry that you can change into. So you remove those wet layers, you put on something dry, something warm, and that will get you through the night, because the temperature shift is anywhere from, in the daytime, we'll see temps of 80 degrees, 85 degrees, which is very, very hot, especially in the desert, to 40 degrees at night or 60 degrees. So like there's a good, on average, 30-degree shift at Javelina, and you feel it.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, so our first race that we ran had a very drastic temperature change within a few hours. And I was lucky enough to run with somebody early on in the race that said, eat, taking calories now, because when that temperature drops, if you don't have the calories in, you're gonna get caught. And we saw a lot of hypothermia there. So I only say that if you're listening and something you're looking at for this race, make sure that even though it's hot, which I would imagine some people could run into stomach issues, but really focus on getting those calories in, because to your point, all of a sudden you get that temperature drop, and if you don't have the calories there to help along with the layers. But it does bring me to another question. You mentioned the main aid station, kind of the party aid station before at headquarters, but it sounds like a pretty sizable loop. If we've got, we're coming through there 5 times. What do the overall aid stations look like? Are there the ability to do drop bags in case you get stuck out on a loop while that temperature changes? Talk us through that.
Yeah, for sure. So we have our main aid station, which is the Javelina headquarters. And that's kind of where we host everybody. That's the crewable aid station. That's a drop bag aid station. So you don't necessarily need crew, but you can very much manage doing the entire race without it. Then we also have 3 remote aid stations, one at Coyote Camp, one at Jackass Junction, which is about halfway around. And then Rattlesnake Ranch was about like 3-4 miles away from back to Javelina headquarters, right? So the 2 Coyote and Rattlesnake are remote aid stations. They're non-crewable. We don't have drop bags there, but they are massive aid stations, and we always kind of deck them out, right? So these are large productions as far as our aid stations go. We like to theme them. We like to light them up at night. We have incredible volunteers that theme things out and dress up in costume because, of course, it's Halloween weekend. And then Jackass Junction is kind of our like party city, like remote. So it's only for runners, and you have to get there to kind of enjoy the party. But Jackass Junction is also just a massive production as far as a race aid station goes. We have a full medical aid station out there. Water station. We have a disco in the desert. We had a bar and grill this last year where Peter Mortimer and Peter Curry kind of collaborated on like this menu of steaks and brisket and like enough bacon to like blow your mind. It was amazing. So like it's and that's also like a drop bag area. So we kind of had this massive city at Javelina headquarters, and then like the party town out at Jackass Junction. So yeah, it's a good one.
I hate me
for not having been there before.
I hate
Am I selling it? Are you gonna come now? Yeah.
2025, I gotta make that happen. Oh my God, I feel so dumb.
It sounds like such a good time. And I think some of the times it's always like, okay, how do you break a race into smaller chunks? And it sounds like you guys do a fantastic job of giving the runners something to look forward to as they're making their way through that loop.
Yeah, just
right?
because I would want to get there and make it through the nighttime just to see
bacon.
how it looks at night. Then,
Yeah.
Right. Well, and it also answers, I think you said, hey, there is another drop bag aid station, right? So people can plan that if they do get stuck out there. So that is good to know.
Yeah.
But
and people hang out at Jackass Junction. Like we have kind of like this within Javelina 100, there's the 100-mile and the 100K, but then we also had this like race within a race that we started only a few years ago, and it's the 31K. We call it the Jackass Night Trail. And so we start it at 12 hours later, and it's a one loop wonder. You do one loop only. So it's a cool way to kind of get your friends and crew involved in the race. If they can do like 20 miles, honestly, they could walk the 20 miles. There's enough time. And it's just a cool way for them to also experience the course while also injecting new life and new kind of energy into the race.
I like that idea too.
That's really cool.
So by the time they get to Jackass Junction, we have disco lights, and we have a DJ, and we have a bar and grill that's going on. We have a beer garden, and that's 10 miles out in the desert. And so it's really cool, and we try to make it really special for runners.
So I'll say, you've sold it, right?
So what are we doing?
So everybody that's listening right now is opening up the computer. They're like, I'm registering. I'm going to be there in October.
No, you're not.
However, right?
Not this year.
So let's talk.
Oh,
right.
maybe.
So let's talk through that though. What does the registration process look like? So from the numbers we have, the wait list is over 200 runners. So this is one that you want to plan for and get into. But what are the tips and tricks for getting registered for Javelina?
Yeah, so we open registration every single year. It's a tradition. We open it on the 1st of January. So at the start of New Year, this is your New Year resolution. It's I'm going to party. I'm going to plan my running season, and then I'm going to cap it off at Javelina 100 and party with my friends. And so we open January 1st. That's every single year. This year was kind of a surprise, but we sold out 1,600 entries in 3 weeks. So it just sold out. The final races were sold out last week, and it's not even February. So definitely plan for it. But I do want to like offer a little bit of hope because in the past, we've also sold out the race fairly early in the year. And then kind of people on the wait list, you'll get, last year we had a wait list of 500 people, and we were able to go through and invite every single person off that wait list throughout the year. So there's a glimmer of hope. Like if you haven't registered for the race and you see that it's sold out, go ahead and register if you want to participate, because we see so much movement throughout the year. People plans change. And, we see a good shift between probably July and September of just a constant movement on that wait list, people withdrawing and then people getting added. So we kind of maintain that participation, but we do it through making sure people come off the wait list. So, yeah.
So if you pulled out that computer, keep inputting that info. Right. Well, and not only that, but it sounds like, and I would imagine with that many people, you guys and people are probably knocking down the door to volunteer.
Ooh, yeah.
But are you looking for volunteers? And if somebody's interested in coming out to volunteer, where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, so we tend to open volunteer registration coming up in February. So look for the link. And there are so many we go through, I think, probably 250 to 300 volunteers to be able to operate this race. And like that's absolutely every task that you can imagine. And we have people building tents, and we have people Rockstar aid stations, and everything. So check out the website and follow the link, and that should be live in February.
I'm just looking at my notes versus his notes. For everybody who's watching us on YouTube, they're like, what are they looking at? So I am curious only because we have seen some of our former guests who participated in the race. I think last year, Tara Dower was the one whose picture that stood out to me. So there are dangers of running in the desert other than typical, reptiles and stuff, but there are plants that apparently jump out and grab people.
Did you see our social from this last race?
Was that from Tara Dower, right?
Yeah. Did you see her?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Can you tell those who are listening or watching, what am I talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have this thing in the desert. We have many different lovely cactuses, but honestly, they're all out to get you. So, don't hug them if you don't. But we have this thing called the jumping cholla, and jumping chollas, they're very delicate. They're very beautiful. Like they look like fluffy bears out in the desert. And you do kind of want to like reach out and be like, fuzzy, no. And they're so delicate that if you touch like a barb, the barbs they kind of act like, like catfish barbs a little bit, right? That you get stuck, but then the reverse of it will get really stuck. So if you try to pull it out, it will go deeper. So those are the jumping cholla, and they are so easily stuck on you, and they will just continue to get stuck, and they don't go anywhere. So I always tell people running in the desert for the first time to carry a fork, because if they carry a fork, they can just fork it away. It's great. It's a great tool. So yeah.
So how did that? I'm just curious. Now I'm distracted, right? How did that happen, with Tara?
100%. Yeah.
Was it a fall, or was she just too close to the side of the trail?
Well, I think she might have taken a trip and fall, because that looked like a trip and fall. That, when someone maybe kind of gets one stuck in the back of their calf, that means somebody behind them kicked it. And so there's a couple of things that happen. Either you kick a cholla and it sticks in your shoe, or you kick a cholla up into the air and it lands in someone's calf or hiney or whatever it is.
It's like Mario Kart.
I think Tara took a dive.
Yeah.
and she came out just covered.
The pictures were incredible, though.
It was amazing.
And was that Howie Stern that captured that? I think it was. Yeah.
It was Howie. Yeah. He always gets so lucky with the gore of it, right? yeah,
It's
it was pretty
solid.
special.
And her face, he got the different expressions throughout the process. But so if you're listening,
We were distracted.
I know, but if you're listening, go look at the social. I think Howie Stern's got it on his. I know you
Yep.
guys have it on yours, but go find Tara Dower with some cool cactus.
And don't hug them.
Yeah, don't
hug them.
Or don't kick them on me.
Oh, I was gonna say Mario Kart. Try to kick them at the people in front of you. See what happens.
No.
The only
Avoid
thing,
them. Like they're so delicate, and like it's not a huge section on the Javelina on the Pemberton Trail. But like in and around Coyote Camp, they're kind of crowd a little bit. So you know, if they're on the ground, just kind of run around them, because if you kick them, they're stuck in your shoe.
Wow.
They're coming with you.
so don't hug those. Just only hug the Javelina if you see them. They're very huggable. Right?
Don't do that either.
So one question that I did want to ask from the registration with the 100-miler, are there any qualifying race requirements? Do you have to have qualifications to register?
No.
Okay, good.
No, it's an open invitation. Please come and run and experience it. And really, I honestly say that it's a great first for anybody really considering the distance. So for 100K, I think it's an incredible first 100K. You get 29 hours to finish that race. And so, you know, you add in all of the elements of like the crew and, you know, your pacers can join you for at least 2 loops. At least for 1 loop for the 100K. And it's just so fun. So, for the 100-mile too, like, because you have that crew support, I think like seeing your crew every 20 miles, and then kind of getting like a little pepper at the party, out in the remotes, it's just a cool time. And you're never going to spend more than, I think our longest stretch between aid stations is 6.6 miles. And relatively that's nothing. So yeah, it's a good one. It's a good first.
Just as a reminder, so it is a Western States qualifier for those who are interested in making it that type of event for themselves. Is it a 30-hour cutoff to be the qualifier for the 100-miler?
For the 100-mile, yeah, you just have to finish the race
And
within the time limit.
And 100K does not qualify in any kind of time limit for that.
Not for this particular race, no.
Right.
Our 100K qualifier is the Black Canyon Ultras, and then the 100-mile is Javelina.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I've got kind of one more question for you. It's very clear how much you love this race. We were talking about, you know, Black Canyon and you were rattling stuff off, and like, you can tell this is just an absolute passion of yours. And so being wrapped up in the races the way you are, what does it mean to you to have runners come out and run this race?
Man, it is like, I love this race. I love the desert. I love like the McDowell Mountain Regional Park, just, you know, and then like wanting to share that with people. It is like such a joy every year to see people come and experience it and kind of, you know, cross the finish line. And maybe like I always say that Javelina is kind of like this race of possibility, right? So like you step to the start line and there's always a possibility there. There's a possibility of you like, you know, finishing your first 100 or PRing or qualifying for Western or something, right? But it's there. And I want to share the desert with people, and because I am who I am, I want to make it as fun as possible. And that's really the heart of Javelina, is, you know, the fun and the joy of creating something, you know, very like, you know, celebrating the community of ultra. And I think that's what we do really well at Javelina. So yeah, it means the world that people continue to come back, and then, you know, new people get excited about it and they want to experience it for the first time. So yeah.
If I can't convince my family to do 2024, I'm going to send them to 2025. That's just me. I've decided.
Well, we've talked several times about the energy in the race, and I think you're the perfect person to talk about it. Your energy is contagious, and it makes us want to go even more. For everybody listening, I don't know how we could have done the race any more justice. You know, you did an incredible job. Here's what I would say. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you for taking the time. And if you could do all the normal stuff, like, subscribe, share with your friends, you know, tell them all about it if you're finding the value. But Jubilee, this has just been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me on and letting me share.
Absolutely. We will make sure that all the links and all that stuff are down in the show notes, but go sign up, just show up, And until next time, cut.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you haven't already, don't forget to check out our full lineup of podcast episodes that are designed to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey.
So be sure to check the links below, and you can visit our website at theultrarunningguys.com or download your episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, when in doubt, just show up.
See ya.